So you're here on ATF, and you know, we enjoy American freedom and everything that you fought to defend. We'll start off with, do you remember the first gun you ever shot?
I do. The first
Tell
gun
me the story of that.
was a Ruger Mark IV 22. My dad is a prior Marine, so he took us downstairs and gave us the firearm safety rules, and that very next day we went out, and of course it was the old Marine Corps style. It was an hour and a half of instruction and safety, and I'm like
I just
like
wanna
6 or 7
shoot.
at that time, and I'm looking at squirrels, and he's like, hey, are you looking in the eyes? Else if you're not paying attention, you're not going to learn the firearm safety rules. So after an hour and a half, that was the only time, but that was our weekly thing, going out to the range and shooting that Ruger 22 Mark IV, and then it sort of evolved from there.
It's pretty rare that I'm humbled by getting to sit in the presence of somebody, but today is one of those days. Today we have somebody that epitomizes America, the American dream, patriotism, and has in his entire life stood for all the values and freedoms that we enjoy. He's first and foremost a veteran. Spent 27 years in America's Special Forces, and more than that, he's just a good guy. I'm sitting here with Dan Brokos today from Facet Tactical. Dan, welcome.
That introduction is way above me.
No,
it's doing my job. That's it, like everybody else. But I appreciate the kind words.
I think every American patriot has a bit of humility because of you know, the things that this country stands for and the things that, you know, we're willing to stand up and defend. And you know, unlike all of us that enjoy that freedom, you've spent an entire lifetime and career doing that. So you know, the entire audience and honestly every American should take their hat off and salute you for all that you've done for this country. We appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate those words.
So continuing with the trifecta, do you remember your first drink?
Yes, it was Schlitz, Blue Bull, malt liquor, 16 ounce in a can.
Nice.
I was probably a sophomore or junior in high school, and we know we'd be like, stop a guy coming out of the bars back then, because you know, Pennsylvania growing up, there's beer stores, and no, we ain't fooling anybody, but hey sir, can you buy us a 6 or 12 pack out of the bar?
Right.
We'll give you $30. And it always worked for usually the first guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, hey, this is the only thing they had in this bar. And I tell you, it was the Schlitz malt liquor will hit you quick.
Oh yeah.
Especially when it's probably your first drink. And I think
when you're unseasoned.
I had three beers unseasoned, and I paid for it the next day.
So you had your first hangover immediately following.
Yep, I did.
All right. So last one. Do you remember your first experience with tobacco?
Yes, I do. And I'm actually a late bloomer with Copenhagen Long Cut. It was 2005.
Oh yeah.
I was
late to the game.
I was in Iraq, and you know, a lot of guys that didn't smoke smoked. Everybody dipped. I'm like, oh man, I've messed around with Red Man every now and then, but that's totally different. Like once in a while, maybe I think I've taken a pinch or something, but my real first dip was 2005, and we're in an aircraft, and I am sick as a dog.
Oh yeah, you're
flying
green.
to a target, turning green, pulling out my SSC bag, puking in it, en route to a target.
You're on a mission en route, and that's the time you decide this seems like a good idea.
Yeah, this seems like a good idea.
Yeah, go.
And everybody's like, hey, just don't swallow it, you'll be all right? And I'm like, okay, so I don't know what I'm doing. And
that hit you quick too.
I dip Copenhagen Long Cut now. That was snuff, which is even finer. And I probably put this huge dip in, and they're just looking at me like, well, that's what you guys do. Yeah, you'll be fine. Just don't swallow any of it. Well, I don't think any of it was in my lip after 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh,
and
no.
they're like, everybody's just chuckling at me. And,
did you muscle through the op?
oh yeah, I got through it, but it was very painful. It's
You're a couple pounds lighter by the end.
A couple pounds lighter, and it's almost like having a stomach sickness where you're down for 24 hours. It put me down for 24 hours.
Oh yeah.
But what does Dan do? Hey Dan, if
I want some more of that.
yeah, you got happens to everybody the first 1 or 2 times, just got through it. And I got it through that. And next thing you know, I'm like, hey, babe, can you send a couple rolls of Copenhagen? She's like, you dip now? I'm like, yeah. She's like, fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my first experience was not good at all.
Yeah.
Not good at all.
So let's back up. Tell me about, real quick, about your childhood, where you grew up, your parents, your upbringing.
I grew up Erie, Pennsylvania, right on the lake. My parents were divorced at a young age, but I was equal custody. Grew up with my mom. My dad was in my life. He was a big influence on sports, discipline, everything else. Like I said, ex-Marine was, hey, you get allowance if you help your mom out with the house, doing chores, everything else. It was kind of raised me kind of strict, like almost like Ricky Bobby. There's no prizes for it's either first or your last.
Right.
You know, he worked.
Was he career?
No.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't career. At the time, he got out of the Marine Corps and worked various jobs for like when the steel industry was big back in Pennsylvania.
But once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine.
Yeah, but that was his thing. He worked influentially with the young Marines through his whole career. I mean, he was still had a good influence in my life, and my mom as well. But you know, growing up between them, he would have us on the weekends. We'd shoot, hunt, fish as we got older. I mean, that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
I was raised with, hey, put in the work, else you don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, I mean, chores were done. I seen the method to his madness once I got in the military.
Yeah, you learned to appreciate it as you grew up. I learned to appreciate
it as I grew up, of the respect for people and the discipline was what he enforced me. And at the time, I thought he was crazy for having me make my bed every single morning. I said, I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm going to sleep in it tonight. But
yeah, it'll still be there.
Every single morning.
Yeah,
little things
it was
like
more
that.
about the exercise. Yeah. So then, you know, surely it was just a given, right? I mean, you were raised, you know, by a Marine with a lot of Marine discipline. I mean, surely the second you graduate high school, you go right into the military, right?
You know, both of my younger and older brother were Marines. I could have played football in college. I just had this sense of tradition I felt with my dad growing up. He was very involved in the Young Marine program. My uncle was in the Army. Everything was very pro-military growing up in my family. So I'm going to drop you off the recruiter, at least talk to him. And the Marine recruiter wasn't there. So Army guy's like, hey, come over here, dude, check out this video.
Oh no, the video. Oh,
so
the video.
I had a conversation and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Of course you need your dad's signature. And I'm like, man, he's gonna whip my ass for not signing up in the Marine Corps. And I was like, Dad, hey, I'm gonna sign up. And he's like, with the Army. And he goes, hey, I'm proud of you. You know what? I always remember this, the unit doesn't make the man makes the unit. I'm just glad you're serving. Are you sure you want to do this? Because you can go to college. It's like, no. And he's like, I'm coming right down to sign it.
That's fantastic.
Good. Yeah, it was good. But I always remember that. The unit doesn't make the man makes the unit. And he told me that, you know, until he passed on everything. Remember, Dan? I said, I know. He always gave me 3 rules of advice, and that was one of them that always stuck with me.
Do you remember that first day? Did you get on a bus or you get dropped off?
You know, it wasn't that day. I think I left. I think I had 3 weeks. It's been so long. All I can remember is...
So you remember shooting your first gun, tobacco, alcohol, but you don't remember...
I do. I remember my first day, you get to what they call the MEP station. You sit there for like 4 days, and you're by yourself for the first time, and it's like, man, I'm on my own.
What did I do?
I remember stepping off that bus saying, this probably isn't for Dan.
Is that right?
Yeah, this probably isn't for Dan.
Well, it's intimidating, right?
Yelling in my face, grabbing all my stuff. But then I was like, it builds such a cohesive bonding with other people. This is the first time that I'm not hanging out with people in my hometown. My brothers were close, so we all had friends that we knew our entire life. Now I'm making friends with guys from Kentucky, guys from California, people over here, and you're bringing all these walks to life to form a cohesive unit and to work as a team, which I think sports built a foundation for that for me. But this first time I seen it, I'm like, I'm actually on my own. This is kind of cool. I mean, it took first week, I'm like, man, I'm not quitting. I don't know. I'm definitely got to do my 2 years. Dan's not quitting. But by the end of basic training, I think I knew that, I hate to say it, I'm 18 years old, but man, I was kind of liking it. I really was. So I was excited. And I do remember getting to my first duty station and being like, my first paycheck was pay call, old school. Brokos, here's your check, and I'm like, then you march you down there and put it in your own account, or do you want cash or a check? Back then I'm like, dude, that's badass, $350 or whatever it was back then, but it's all mine.
Right.
It's all mine. I did this on my own. I'm 18, I'm living life, and I got my first paycheck. So I pretty much knew throughout my whole career there was no inkling of like, I think I'm gonna get out. I always thought, I'm gonna try something different in the military. I'm gonna try something different. Yeah. Maybe I should do this. But basic training was actually a good experience for me.
So your upbringing kind of provided the foundation that discipline and that regiment and that kind of performance-driven culture wasn't really all that foreign to you.
No, it wasn't.
It kind of felt like home.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I need one of you guys to hop on this. My dad would say that, and I remember, hey, I need 6 volunteers, and it was like, stop, you're not volunteering anymore, Brokos. Somebody else.
You're volunteered out.
Yeah, so somebody else get up here. But that was the mindset that was instilled in us. Just do what you're asked. If somebody asks you to do something, do it.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't have joined the military, what do you think you would have done? So on that day, you went down there. You were just checking it out. The Marine recruiter wasn't even there. And you saw a really well-produced video that made it seem really amazing, right? You still remember the video?
Oh, yeah, the guy was...
All those videos are
badass,
casting
out of an old, like, CH-53, landing, swim on the Zodiac, and then he didn't even have a gun in his hand, but next they're on a Zodiac with machine guns, shooting stuff, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. Shoot guns out of a boat. Yeah, I'll join the Army, which they don't do, but the video got me. I've always had an interest in the medical field. There was, like I said, I always wanted to be in the military, but after my first enlistment was up, I almost re-enlisted to become a nurse. I just like...
Wait a minute. So the owner of lead Faucet...
Yes, almost.
So many deployments we can't even count.
Almost was going to be a nurse.
Several different regions.
Male nurse.
We won't even talk about. Yeah, wanted to be a nurse.
I respect the medical field.
Yeah.
Of how much I've seen people that we've had to drop off the med facilities. Just not even the military, but over here, I think they're underappreciated. I don't know why it's always been that way, and nobody in my family is on the medical field. I've just had this drawing to it of, like, nurse ain't for me. I really like guns, and I didn't really thought about it, but I went over to a recruiter, and they're like, hey, they're having a bonus for this, and I'm like, hey, what anything open in the medical field for 11 Bravo? And they're like, no. But you could go back and get trained. You don't have to go to the basic, but we can train you. Here's a nurse. And I'm like, nurse? He's like, yeah, there's male nurses. So, this is your profession and all that stuff.
Here's an IFAC, okay?
And even when we did all of our cross training, it was always very, very interesting to me. I don't know. I don't know why. I think there's a lot of underappreciated jobs out here in the United States, but that's always been my drawing to that.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, it's probably why we get along is I think there's a great pride in thankless jobs, right? I mean, they're the backbone of this country. And, these people that wake up every day with a servant mentality, that go into their thankless jobs just to do things, and that goes long, beyond just military and LEO and nurses and doctors, and, it's everything from, your public utility guy to your truck driver to, this whole system doesn't work if it isn't full of these blue collar servants.
Yes.
And our entire education system now is built to, if you don't graduate as a doctor or a lawyer or a banker or a CEO, you've apparently failed. I don't remember a tract where, hey, plumbing and auto mechanic is a really good career path. But I've got a couple buddies that are, plumbers, and they probably make more money than anybody I know.
Oh yeah, electricians, mechanics nowadays. But I agree with you. It's the service of servitude and why you're doing it. Yeah, everybody needs a career to pay bills and feed your family, but in the long run, all those jobs, this country can't run without those.
So as you raised your kids, how did your own values influence what kind of a parent you are? I know when I had kids, the whole world changed, obviously, but my view of the world changed, and even my view of myself and the things I've done and the things I aspire to do, like everything changed.
Man, I thought that was the best thing ever, having kids and raising them. It made me give appreciation of like, you know what, Dan, you're not the only dude that counts on this earth anymore. Got it. Much respect to the wife, but the kids change your mentality. It's like, man, if there's one thing I'm never going to give up, or never going to put myself first in front of it, that's those little dudes right there.
Yeah, it's a whole new... I thought I was protective in nature until I had kids, and man, that was a game changer. But I mean, you mentioned your wife, and those are in my opinion, those are the other unsung heroes that deserve all the medals and acknowledgement of service just as much as our servicemen. Because, they're, in my mind, they're the ones that, keep us anchored, keep us centered, keep us from turning into just absolute savages.
I told you great juice is like, I tell her, she saved my life from going down a dark pit year or two of my retirement. Even prior to retirement, she always held me accountable. I didn't like it, and I argued it, but I always did it. And I needed that from her, to hold me accountable for my actions. And it was like, one, she can deal with all the kids, my job, and manage me. She deserves way more credit than me.
Right? Yeah, I mean...
But I agree, and I think the spouses, I don't care what walks of life, but it's like, hey, this, and this. Well, she's been there way longer than anybody else. She didn't leave me in all the dumbass things I've done.
Well, and you think about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're blessed enough to be the type of man that can really think through those things, right? And you think about the things we do and, the things that we've put them through. And if the roles were reversed, would we still be there? Hell no. Like, guys aren't wired that way.
No, guys aren't wired
we'd
that
up
way,
and
no.
ditch and I mean, it's, but, thank God for him, right? Because, I have no idea what kind of man I'd be, if my wife wouldn't have stuck around.
I agree.
So now's the fun part. So we're up to modern day. You've got lead Facet Tactical, which is a pretty cool name for a tactical company. What's the story behind the name? There's got to be a story.
I was a private, and we're in training, and we jumped in to do this airfield seizure, and I was a big guy, so I was on the weapons squad right when I got to my platoon. And of course, I'm the AG. I got a 60 gunner who's a E4 at the time, and I'm his little scribe. Hey, Dan, carry all the ammo, carry the tripod. That was my job. Okay, I'm a big guy, heavy ass rucksack. So we jump in. He breaks his leg. Weapon squatters like Brokos pick up that 60, and I'm like, and the AG gear, and he's like, don't give me any lip, just pick it up. So this is like a live fire platoon raid. We're going up, and we get in the position, support opens up, and I'm taught 35 round bursts. And no ear probe back at the time, and he's just sitting there yelling at me. I'm like, I can't hear you. And he laid next to me and hit me right in the ribs, and I was like, he's like, stop messing around with that gun. You're firing these 3 to 5 round bursts. I don't care what you hit, make it sound good. Stop messing around and turn on the lead faucet. I'm like, the lead faucet? And he's like, yeah, get out. And he started ripping off 15, 20, 30 rounds. And I'm like, I got it, the lead faucet. So what does Dan do? I melt the barrel. I turn on the lead faucet, all right. So then after that training exercise, he's like, you melted the barrel, low crawl off the drop zone. All right, roger that. So I learned that real big, and it kind of stuck with me. I turned on the lead faucet, and I sort of used it growing up. Hey, stop messing around. It sort of became an brevity code as I grew up into the mission planning set. Like, hey, lead faucet. Hey, turn on the lead faucet.
Yeah, suppressive fire,
yeah,
lay it down.
Yep, had a meeting.
I know you're doing some really amazing things for some of the most important people in this country. Tell me about things that you're doing with not just military, but especially LEO to better equip them for the challenges that they're facing on the street today.
Well, I started Lead Faucet because I enjoy instructing and teaching, and there's a lot of guys in this line of work, but all the knowledge, and it doesn't bother me. I was like, man, hey, I got 27 years of experience bringing professionals in, all the outside sources we had. I just love teaching, to give back. So, we do marksmanship with carbine and pistol. Tactics is really picking up for us as far as the CQB side of the house, and we got some new classes coming out next year. Really like to get out there and affect law enforcement, military, and civilians on the shooting side. The tactics are far more for the law enforcement and military guys, but I just like passing around knowledge.
Well, I think we can all agree that law enforcement's job is only getting more complicated.
Yes,
it's not just getting tougher, but it's getting more complicated. And I'll be the one who is unpopular and say in a lot of ways it's resembling urban warfare, which isn't all that unlike the unique situation that we faced in the Middle East, which made that engagement unique. And so complicated and so dangerous. And in a lot of ways, that's what our guys in blue are facing out there. So, what have you found about what Lead Faucet can offer out there that, makes you guys stand out, makes you unique?
I think we offer I say, for us, CQB, close quarter battle, but it's about room entry from anywhere, house, apartment complex, school. It doesn't matter, the mindset and the training of what to do, because there's an answer for this room, there's an answer for this room. The room's never at fault, it's the technique. And that's the thing we changed. Once the war started, is you validate a lot of TTPs, and what we're putting out is a program that is simplistic. It's the same thing, just requires some work to get it down, but it's never the room's fault. It's the 90% solution, because everybody in the law enforcement military, they want 100%. I'll never give you 100% solution. It's 90%. Right. The rest of the 10% is in your head. There's no 100% solution for anything.
There's always going to be an improvise.
I really, and I totally agree with you 100%. There's going to be a time and place in this country, and I ask this question all the time. Hey, what's your worst case scenario? Everybody says a school shooting or this. I said, that's a good worst case scenario. There's going to be a matter of time where there's 2 or 3 people in an office building just going to town.
Right.
And that's now.
It's not going to be a lone shooter.
Yeah. Now hit a 7-8 room set, as I call it, with 3 shooters, not 1.
Right.
Now we better have our shit together.
Right.
To do that. These are some of the complex problem solving sets we had over there, and everybody's like, well, there's no difference between the military and law enforcement. There's apartments over there. There's houses. It's the same mindset. We just got to apply it here.
Yeah, if you break it down to the fundamentals, right?
Yes.
But, even if you go back in, our history, and certainly it wasn't the first one, but I think it was the first, public, situation in Colorado. I mean, that was multiple
Yep.
shooters, and that's what kind of started all that at the schools, and all the way to present day in Texas. We just had this situation, and I'm not going to dive into that or even ask you to dive into it, but I think we've seen highlighted the difference that training makes in certain situations, and some of that's command training. Some of it's boots on the ground training, but across the board, I think my opinion, as unpopular as it may be at the present time, is, the solution is to have a solution when problems face you. You can't freeze.
Have lessons learned on every problem set, but you're right, you can't be coming up with the solution once the problem presents itself. You better have a solution prior to going in, and I think that's what our CQB program is bringing to law enforcement agencies throughout the United States. Is like, man, I'm giving you all the tools that we use. You just gotta apply them on any situation.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, what's that room look like? Man, this is my technique. It's what we're using.
Proven.
It's proven.
So, everything you're doing with LEO and with lead faucet seems, you seem to have it, right? I mean, you've got your company that's serving a great mission. You're serving a great mission at home. You've got a great wife. You've got a great family. You've got great kids. Sounds like you're living the dream.
Yep, I am. Always tightening nuts and bolts. You got to check myself, which I did. I never let anything come off. That's what I learned. Always keeping things tight. Discipline.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it.
But I do. I love my life. I have no complaints. I thank God. I thank you for inviting me in your house. Everybody I meet, I take it as an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I'm here for a reason, so let's better on that. Before, I think I'm always a humble dude, but I didn't take the opportunity to enjoy each day and each interview or each presence I've had, no matter if it's an interview, a class, or anything. So life is always improving for me, and that's what I appreciate about it.
Yeah. Let's keep talking when we roll outside.
Okay.
And we're going to start eating some of that meat that we've been cooking all day.